Sorry.
Hello everybody, welcome. Welcome to everybody here at Litteraturhuset in Oslo and all of you online following this session. We are very happy that you are all here. And the theme today is at the forefront of the fight for freedom of the press in Russia. And the organizers of this evening's event is PEN Norway in cooperation with the Nobel Peace Center, the Norwegian Union of Journalists, the Helsinki Committee, and the Human Rights House Foundation. So the event itself is part of the Oslo Peace Days, and my name is Agnete Haaland, and I'm the Vice President of Norwegian PEN, or PEN Norway. And the theme today is about Russia. Since the major protests have come up against the Russian government in 2011, 2012, draconian laws have been passed in Russia. Websites and social media platforms have been blocked, and independent media houses have been shut down. And following, as you all know, the arrest of Navalny, freedom of the press has been further constrained. Besides Novaya, Gazeta, there are few independent newspapers left in the country that operates without being accused of being a foreign agent. And what this means, we'll get back to. So, since journalists and bloggers have been persecuted, fined, and imprisoned for their work, that's why we are here. Many attacks, even murder on journalists, are neither investigated nor tried in court. From 1992 till 2020, at least 82 journalists were killed in Russia. 82 journalists. And despite this immense danger, courageous Russian journalists continue to secure access to reliable information and promote freedom of expression, such as this year's Nobel Peace Prize winner, Dmitry Muratov. And since he is one of the winners this year, we have invited here two eminent representatives of the brave Russian journalists, Elena Milashina, who is a journalist as Novaya Gazeta, the same journalist as Dmitry, and she's also the winner of Free Media Award 2016, altså Fritt Pris 2016. And Nadia Asygina, no, Nadia...
It's okay.
It's okay, okay.
It's okay.
Ashkina.
Ashgichina.
I was so good before we started.
Unpronounceable in any language.
Okay.
Please
Nadia.
calm down.
Yes, Nadia. We are so happy to have here as well. A long-time journalist, the director of PEN Moscow, and a member of the Russian Writers' Union and Gender Council of the International Federation of Journalists. So please give them both a warm welcome. Nadia, I will start with you, because you have worked for the protection of journalists and their interests for more than 20 years. And how would you describe the development in Russia for freedom of expression for the last 10 years?
In a few words?
Yeah.
In a few words, we are still alive, and we are in the picture. First of all, I would like to make some small correction because, figures of killed or deceased journalists, it's a tricky thing because UNESCO has one procedure to count, OSCE or CPJ another procedure, and what Russian journalist community thinks that we include in our death list all those people who deceased or who died from unclear situation or disappeared or killed directly. And in this list we have unfortunately not 82 but more than 300 names since the beginning of 90th. And it's a tragedy, and most of them ended with impunity. We know that everywhere in the world just 8% of all crimes and killings of journalists have been investigated properly and ended with court and some serious decisions. In Russia is the same. And it's our duty to remember, and I'm happy to inform you that PEN Moscow just now works on a book devoted to profiles of killed colleagues. It's important to have those profiles. And in general, development is not very lucky for us. I would like to remind that freedom of expression in Russia is very fresh. It's not like in Norway. And history was very short. We got our first legislation which claimed illegal censorship and announced freedom of expression in 1990, the last months of Soviet Union. And everybody, it was the first and obvious result of perestroika. Everybody was happy, but we didn't have any experience how to deal with market, because we didn't have market. We didn't have not enough just knowledge about it. We didn't elaborate strong trade union movement or independent owners movement or so on. And as a result, media became a tool for oligarchs, rich people first, then a very useful tool for politicians. Then it became a battle between censorship and independent voices, which is traditional for Russian culture. For 3 centuries of history of our journalism, and all our famous writers participated in it. Unfortunately, since 2014, as our media lawyers say, we have more than 25 legal initiatives restricting the media. And on the other hand, we have selective justice, selective implementation of those media, and we have incredible situation today. Elena knows much more as a practical investigator, that number of forbidden areas is enormous. You cannot cover army, you cannot cover space, you cannot cover property of state officials, and so on and so on. And you mentioned already foreign agents list. Last Friday we got a new number of people included in, and media companies included in this list. And just now, our colleagues, we were talking with Elena and our friends now, our colleagues from Council for Human Rights meet President and discussing different issues. So they already discussed torturing in prisons, which is a very hot issue. And we are waiting for discussion about this shameful law on so-called foreign agents.
And this law on foreign agents, I mean, what does it mean? And also, how can you work if you have been labeled like a foreign agent?
People do, but many people. First of all, it was devoted to NGOs. Mm-hmm. And many NGOs stopped their activities. Some of them still work, including Mass Media Defense Center, which is a unique organization helping many journalists and media companies.
But also individuals can be labeled.
Now, later on, it was amendment to media law. It was a special definition of media foreign agents. And first, foreign agents used to be Voice of America and Radio Liberty, literally American sponsored media. But then number of other media have been included. And after that, new amendment included individuals as media. What does it mean? So they are obliged to establish an enterprise, a report about everything they spend, and so on. And last moment, all our colleagues blamed a lot, was including the founder of Mass Media Defense Center as individual media, because she is a media lawyer, she is not a journalist. So it's very unpleasant. And Muratov, whose pictures are everywhere, he is recognizable. You will meet him, you will not miss him. And here in Oslo, and it's fantastic to see Muratov and Maria Ressa at every corner here, and to be here in Norwegian Peace Center together with Elena Milashina. It's a fantastic event. I think it will make difference anyway.
I'm very happy to hear that, and we're very happy to have you here. So, Elena, you are one of these writing journalists that we are talking about and who are affected by all these laws as well. And you are an awarded international and national journalist. And what do you think are the main challenges for journalists working in Russia today?
Well, like Nadia said, to stay alive.
Yeah. How do you stay alive? How do you write about what you see and the people you interview, the people you interview,
Well, to
and
answer,
stay alive?
yeah, to answer this question, I should probably tell a little bit about my work and me in profession. I started to be a journalist. Actually, I worked for 25 years in Novaya Gazeta, and it's not common today for people, not young, but my generation, not to change the workplace. It's more common for my parents, for example, generation, and Soviet people. But I was really lucky when I was a student to come to Novaya Gazeta, and it was like Nadia said, and at times it was actually the last train of freedom of speech that were started in 1990 and ended when actually Mr. Putin took his chair as president of Russia. I became a journalist in 1996, came to Novaya Gazeta, and was going to write about theater, about music. I have a musical education. Was dreaming to work in the Department of Culture in my newspaper. And then suddenly I started to work as an investigative journalist. But and I was writing a lot about army, and made a big research on submarine, the tragedy with submarine Kursk that happened in Barents Sea in 2000. But I ended up in 20 years working and writing about Chechnya. It's a small region in Russia, but very famous because we had two wars there back 90s and at the beginning of 20s. And the way I started to work there was pretty harsh because maybe you know, one of the most famous, actually the most famous Russian journalist, Anna Politkovskaya, worked in Novaya Gazeta and was working in Chechnya and covering the human rights violations that was happening during the Second War there. She is very famous and will always be for her work. But in 2006, she was shot dead at her house in Moscow. And we all in my newspaper understood that this murder was ordered because of her work in Chechnya. And was thinking in my newspaper, should we continue to work in Chechnya, because back then it was pretty dangerous, and now it's completely dangerous. But actually we decided to continue, and that's how I started to work in Chechnya. Nadia was talking to you that with the last years, our parliament, which is absolutely represents only the Kremlin and its wishes, but not representing the people of Russia, because what they called elections are not elections, actually. And we can select the people and elect people in the parliament that represents our interests. They use this parliament to exist laws to censorship, actually, the work of journalists in Russia. Army, the first big story I was covering back in 2000, it's not possible to cover anymore. Secret Service troops and what they do, for example, I was covering another big story, Beslan tragedy. It's a small city in South Ossetia.
But what will happen if you cover it?
Now?
Yeah?
I don't know, because a lot of people just stop covering it. You can end up in the prison.
But it's a crime. It's a crime when
No.
it's equal to state secrets.
Okay.
It's not state secret, but they announced number of issues equal to that.
Yeah. So if you cover it, you can go to prison.
I know you yourself have received several threats directly from Kadyrov, and you have been attacked, but you still keep on
Probably we should say who is Kadyrov. Maybe.
Yeah, please.
Don't know.
The president of Chechnya.
But Chechnya I'm covering and receiving threats every year, and a lot of threats from Mr. Kadyrov, who is the head of Chechnya, Russian region. He's a Russian governor, actually. It's not forbidden yet, so I can continue my work, and I'm doing this. Getting threats from him, yes.
So what gives you the courage to keep on your work?
Well, I've been a journalist for 25 years in one of the most fabulous newspapers of the world, and I don't want to change my life. So I will continue until we exist, because I think next year will be even more harder for Russian journalism and Novaya Gazeta also. I think they will go up to us and all the media that left, independent media that left in Russia, independent lawyers, because it's obvious Russian government is closing step by step the civil society that we were creating since Gorbachev announced perestroika and glasnost in my country.
But when you travel to North Caucasus and Chechnya, are people eager to talk to you? I mean, can you interview people without them being afraid of what you will refer to, or will they talk?
That's
on camera.
That's one of the biggest problem of journalists who try to work in Chechnya, and actually it's getting a big problem for all Russian journalists who work all across the country, because people, not only in Chechnya, but in Chechnya especially, are afraid to talk with journalists. And in Chechnya, yes, when Anna Politkovskaya was working during Chechen War, when she came to Chechnya, a line of people were getting around the office of Memorial. It's Russian, the most famous Russian NGO group that was founded by Andrei Sakharov and other very famous Russian dissidents. And now the government is up to close this NGO, and it's a very, it's like a main moment for all the Russian society, because the memorial, it's a fundamental thing for us, for Russian civil society, for Russian people who thinks differently. And if they close it, if they dare to do that in the year when Andrei Sakharov is 100 years from his birth, it means that they will close everything and everybody. So, but...
Can I add that Memorial is an organization established for remembering and rehabilitation of victims of Stalin's Great Terror, originally, and now they work with violations of human rights today, not only with history, but only with contemporary situation.
Well, you said something about it, but why is it so important for journalists to cover human rights violations, and in particular in the situation of North Caucasus? And I mean, why is it important to the Russian audience, to the readers, the people who absorb the news?
To whom? Because journalism is about human rights. It's a human right profession.
Yeah.
So what to say? What could we cover else? It's number one. There are different dimensions of it. Even covering theater, we have some trials in theater. We have lots of corruption and lots of gambling there. So if you cover literature, there's also lots of options to tell about the most important. So there is no choice. It's for, if you agree.
But Nadia,
sorry, I interrupt you.
No, that's fine. Throughout your work at PEN Moscow and the Independent Journalists and Media Workers Union, you were working to document attacks against journalists and highlight cases where journalists and writers are targeted in various ways. That's a very impressive work, by the way. But are there any cases where you feel that your work has really made a difference?
Yes. First of all, our PEN Moscow started with case of Elena Milashina and Novaya Gazeta. It's important to mention here, it's literally, because we were born April 1st, 2017, just after death threats and the sort of fetwa from religious fanatics from Chechnya. They never been stopped. So this call to violence is still active. They never throw it away. And nobody from big organizations, creative organizations, they didn't raise their voice for Novaya Gazeta. That's why group of writers and journalists, most of them belong to Russian PEN and split after that, and some added. We decided to establish another organization which became PEN Moscow and became member of PEN International family. And together with PEN St. Petersburg, we protect, call for protection and for justice for journalists, bloggers, theater directors, cinema directors, librarians, and others. We started with exact cases. We started with case of Oleg Sentsov, and many of our colleagues stand in. We arranged events. It was possible that time to arrange demonstrations and single pickets. Natalia Sharina, librarian in Ukrainian library, she was accused for spreading extremist literature. Our colleagues went to her court and so on. She is not under home arrest now. We followed several other cases, and I should tell you that number of our cases, 8 people from the list mentioned in our report, which we produced under the umbrella of PEN International, have been released. It was a result of solidarity, national and international, and it is important. And I would like to mention that despite all problems, we face very serious problems. But not all people would like to be silent. People make their choice. And those people who do not agree with these restrictions and repressions and so on, they're not silent. In different regions of Russia, Svetlana Prokopyeva, a journalist from Pskov region, she was released. Of course, the trial is going on, but she is free. She can do everything. Just because of it wasn't Pskov. And you know, sometimes people who would like to oppress journalists and writers, they think that, okay, Moscow is a special case. But far from Moscow, nobody would pay attention, nobody would know. And it is important to follow different cases in different cities, and we do. And we go on and go on. And we do believe we'll release, for example, Abdulmumin Gadjiev, who was detained together with Ivan Golunov. Ivan Golunov is a well-known person. It was fake accusation about drug dealing, but the origin was his professional activity. And it was a very important moment when all Russian, not only journalists, but ordinary people demanded his release, because it was clear that it was police violation of rule of law. And he was released, and he became quite famous. And Abdulmumin Gadjiev, he is from Dagestan, from Chernovik, the Draft newspaper, very sharp newspaper. Chief editor and founder was killed. Nobody was found guilty, of course. Dealing with corruption and human rights mostly. Abdulmumin Gadjiev was arrested, was detained at the same time with Golunov, and he still is in detention. And those people who protected him, including our colleague chief of journalist organization in Makhachkala, also they have been punished for protecting him. But we wouldn't like to forget him. So it's our everyday business.
But you've also been very focused on gender perspective in journalism. I mean, you are two women from journalism here, but why is that important?
It is important because women are majority in our profession. It happened not now, but many years ago when I was a young journalist already. And today it is important that gender issues became visible in our professional community, fortunately. And I'm happy and very proud of Novaya Gazeta. I think Novaya Gazeta was the first to establish this not manual, but sort of ethical code for gender equality, and Elena knows more about it.
How big is the newspaper? Can you describe it to us? How many readers do you have?
Readers of Novaya Gazeta?
Yeah.
We have online and the paper issue, and it's around 3 million both if you combine.
Right, so you reach out to a lot of people.
It's quite popular, and what Novaya Gazeta does, it includes new formats in messengers, streams, YouTube interventions, lots of long text, and at the same time they follow traditional best standards of Russian journalism.
Thank you, Nadia.
That's very good. That's very impressive. But who are those the most targeted journalists and those at risk? I mean, you said something
Investigative
about
journalists in Russia right now. Yes.
investigative journalism.
Yes, they
But are the
investigate
cultural workers also targeted?
everybody, but the most targeted group right now among the journalists is investigative journalists who investigate the high-level corruption. Yeah,
Corruption and, sorry?
corruption, high-level.
High-level corruption. That is the most dangerous thing to do right now.
Right now, yes.
So in other words, you have a lot of it. Probably.
Yes, we have a lot of great investigators, yes, among the journalists. It's a small media outlets that were created recently. For example, one of these media outlets, iStory, that was created by the team that left Novaya Gazeta investigative department to start their own project, and was headed by Roman Anin, probably the most I think he is the best Russian investigative journalist. He's very young, but still. They were living 1 year since Roman founded this outlet, and in 1 year, Kremlin announced them both the media, iStory as a foreign agents, and all people who work in this media, foreign agents by personally.
Wow. Nadia, for many years you have organized a yearly concert in memory of those family members of killed journalists in Moscow. Why has it in your important?
It was not me. The idea of concert for memory for killed journalists belonged to Russian musicians, to Yuri Bashmet, direct conductor, supported by Georgy Karetnikov. He is a famous musical journalist and organizer, and he was born in camp. His mother was in prison during Stalin's time. He was born in camp. And after he was not a close friend, but he was a friend of Anna Politkovskaya, and after her assassination, he offered his friends musicians to play for her memory. And as a result, Moscow Conservatory agreed to have this concert and to give an award for Politkovskaya to the most courageous journalist in Russia. And Yevgeny Kissin participated sometime, but now this award moved from Conservatory to Central Musical House, and Novaya Gazeta participates in this award and Politkovskaya award, and this year it was Vladimir Spivakov, also famous conductor. So it is a gathering of cream of the cream of Moscow intellectuals and human rights defenders and the best people of Moscow.
And Russia.
And Russia, okay.
Of course.
That's good, very good. Your husband was the former deputy editor of Novaya Gazeta, right? And he died in a quite mysterious
First of all, he was a famous journalist.
And parliament member?
He was elected in 1989 for Supreme Soviet of Soviet Union because of his writing about corruption. He was the first journalist who opened this issue for Soviet press at that time, and started investigative journalism. And investigative department in Novaya Gazeta was named for him after his strange spiritual death. Yes, his name is Yuri Shikachikhin. He worked then in parliament with Interpol and participated in many important investigations. He published in Novaya. He was working for Literatурная Gazeta, then he moved to Novaya Gazeta and became chief editor. And yes, and he died in the from mysterious disease. Still now it's not clear. And the case was opened several times and closed several times, and Novaya Gazeta covered it. So he contributed for Novaya Gazeta. And investigative journalism became like brand of Novaya Gazeta and still is.
And now the editor of the same newspaper is given the Peace Prize. What does
And
that
you
make
know,
think?
when Muratov got the news about the prize, first his words were for BBC and other media, and it was quoted everybody, that the award is not for him, but for killed journalists like Anna Politkovskaya, Yuri Shikachikhin, and others. And it was very important message for Russian society. Today he mentioned that society should be for journalists, not only journalists, for society. And that's right, because this connection between ordinary people and journalists, it is not breaking totally, but it was puzzled. And probably this award could give an option to rearrange this connection, to rearrange this cooperation, I should say. And it's not just my crazy idea or Bogdan or Muratov's dream, but I do remember how at the Congress of International Press Institute, many chief editors and publishers and journalists told that during COVID time, this communication and interaction between the audience and journalists became closer. COVID helped it. And the people understood that it's important to develop. And it's very important to develop in Russia. And as Muratov said, there was a time when audience and journalists looked the same direction. Now it's not like that. And that's why we have all those restrictions, unfortunately, and violence against journalism. So it should be arranged.
I hope the Peace Prize
And I do
make a
believe
difference.
that this award and this extraordinary event could help.
I hope so. And Elena, what do you think this award will mean for your future work? Will the recognition to the editor of Novaya Gazeta make you and your colleagues more protected?
I think it gives us more time to continue our work, and it's important. I don't know what it will give us and how it supports us, but for me, it's an award that was given to a right person and who deserved it, because what Mr. Muratov did, he continued this freedom of speech tradition that was born by Gorbachev in my country, and Gorbachev is actually co-founder of Novaya Gazeta. And I think example of Muratov and Novaya Gazeta, which exists only because Muratov exists in the country, in the like Russia, that it's possible. It's possible to be free. It's possible to practice high-quality journalism. And this award just goes to the right person.
Oh, happy to hear. Yeah, Nadia, you have throughout your work emphasized the importance of solidarity and cooperations with journalists in other countries. You have said something about it, but why is this solidarity so important? How can it make a difference?
I already mentioned, first of all, I would like to add to Elena's wonderful statement that tradition of freedom of expression and intention to expand freedom of expression in Russia is quite old. That all famous writers from the 19th century and 20th century tried to do their best. And I mentioned that, to my point, Muratov follows the best traditions of writing and journalism because quality of the word is very important in Novaya Gazeta. Even in reports about the same Chechnya or elderly house or something else, quality of the word is important. And he follows and he insists on this top cultural tradition, top cultural level of discussion, not just many people. So he's close to literature, and I think it's very important, and it also gives energy, because energy of literature, energy of those mysterious efforts to protect people, to remind about people's dignity during tyranny or Stalin's time or everything. It gives energy to younger people, and it's very important. It's old and very powerful tradition. That's why I am optimistic, because tradition is very strong. And about solidarity, solidarity is also, it's not a tool, it's part of your life. And solidarity matters, as I mentioned. We have number of people released. I participated some time ago in a journalist project. It was Russian-Ukrainian journalist project called Two Countries, One Profession. We started in 2014, and it was frozen, unfortunately, because of political situation and other circumstances in 2018. But for 4 years, beyond the conflict and real war, we met mostly in Vienna under the umbrella of OSCE, sometimes in Brussels under the umbrella of International Federation of Journalists, sometimes in Paris under the umbrella of UNESCO. And we managed not just to talk to each other. Approximately 200 people participated. We managed to publish some manuals for covering conflict. We managed to have some ethical decisions in our ethical commissions in the very beginning of the process, even blamed propaganda in Russia on Russian TV. It was joint idea. But we never expected, we managed to rescue 6 people from detention in eastern Ukraine. And one of them wrote a book, Valery Makeyev, 1 day in detention, and the second, Roman Cheremsky, he made a film, and both said that they were just alive because of Russian and Ukrainian journalists demanded their release.
So it helps to cry out.
After that, what to say? It's important, even if it's a shadow of things like that. It matters. I do believe in solidarity. And I mentioned already people released like Igor Rudnikov from Kaliningrad, or other people from different regions. They have been released because of solidarity. And I believe in international solidarity because it's also very important. It helps. It gives lots of courage, and it helps practically.
And that's what the organizations behind this meeting is all about: how to really forward freedom of speech and make people available to actually say what they mean and find out what happens in society.
And I'm very grateful for all people who paid attention to Russian journalists and journalists as a whole, because we should know more. And when I come to the Caucasus, I feel guilty a lot, because we in Moscow, for example, or in big cities, when we see those young and not so young people who risk every minute, and they just want to tell the truth. They write for different, not very well-known even in Russian media like Caucasian Note or some websites, but they do believe that their word could make difference.
And we want all of you to stay alive and keep on working. But before we'll let you go, and thank you so much for sharing your stories, we will open the floor to the audience. If anyone would like to have a question, you will have a microphone. It's going to be, anti-backed and treated properly, so Hege will bring it to you. So that the people who are watching online can hear your question.
There was a question, I think.
Yeah, it will come. Yeah. She'll have a microphone.
Thank you. I'm Julie Wilhelmsen from the Norwegian Institute of International Affairs. Would first like to express my deep respect and big thank you for the work that you're doing. And then I have quite a specific question, and it concerns a media outlet which actually many of us in Norway follow and support. And it's and you just mentioned it. It's Caucasian Knot and the situation that it was liquidated, or it was called a foreign agent for the third time on the very day that the prize for Muratov was announced. So I'm wondering, it would be interesting to have your description of the situation for Caucasian Knot now.
About Caucasian, unfortunately, I do not know all legal details. I know that the best media lawyer support and the organization Mass Media Defense Center traditionally works with Caucasian Knot and help them. I do respect Grigory Shvedov and all his team very much. We are in contact on a regular basis. So we cooperate. I don't know what could be in legal frame, but definitely Caucasian Knot would be alive in this or that way. No doubts, because people need this information. And people who contribute for Caucasian Knot, it is a huge network. In every mountain village, they have their sources and correspondence, not only sources. Younger people, they used to send their videos. They have very important award for Ahmed Nabiev, which is serious, and Novaya Gazeta journalists won traditionally, several of them, because it's small world. And I do believe that Caucasian Knot will be alive, and they really need our attention.
Thank you. Another question in the back there, please.
Hello. My name is Erik Storelv. I'm a political scientist and a businessman, but I've been following Russia and communism for a couple of decades now. I have two quick questions. First, I know you are not legal experts, but there are some statements in the Russian constitution that make you maybe believe that you have the freedom of press and freedom of expression. But how is it possible for you to claim any protection from the Constitution? I know it's not in reality, but in theory, would it be possible to claim some protection from the clauses in the Constitution, Russian Constitution? The second question is, should we impose more sanctions on the Putin regime here in the West? What do you think about the status of sanctions now?
Elena, would you like to answer one of the questions? Maybe the one about protection in the Constitution?
Well, we had a great constitution, very democratical one, during Stalin times.
During Stalin times?
And this is the same situation. We have it on paper, but even Russian judges, when you appeal to Constitution of Russia during the trial, say, don't mention this document, it means nothing. Even Russian judges.
So that will lead to the second question then. Do you think that the West should have, employ sanctions on Russia?
I'm a person who practices dialogue. I think the problems can be resolved only when you're talking to people. even if those people are not really nice. I think sanctions not working, and it gives a tool to Mr. Putin to close my country even more. So I think it would be more productive if Western leaders would talk to Mr. Putin and convince him that what he is doing is bad for the country.
I hope he can be convinced.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in dialogue.
Thank you. And then
Can I add? I would, if I could, I would like to add. First of all, our media law is not bad. Originally, it was one of the best because it was based on the best Western legislation. Constitution also has fundamental things, and many lawyers say that it could be used properly. And I do know that lawyers who protect journalists, they use constitution and Russian legislation. It's not easy. The same Mass Media Defense Center won several cases in European Court for Human Rights, and many cases in Russian regions. It's more and more tough, but they do. So it's possible. Professional lawyers could deal with contemporary situation. And about sanctions, I would like to support Elena a lot, because since first sanctions started recently, situation became worse with every new stage of sanctions. First to suffer were independent NGOs, independent journalists, all independent-minded people, and nothing happens to those who violated human rights. So it's really harmful. If you would like to see real desert in Russia, without any shadow, without any faces of independent-minded people, please do extra sanctions to Russia. Because it is, we have a definition called to bomb Voronezh, to put bomb on your own city. It's Russian reaction on sanctions. So nothing good happens after sanctions. We, Elena, me, other people would suffer first, and we do already. You see it. So dialogues could be different. Dialogues of politicians are really very different. And there are different fields, like disarmament. I participated in an initiative arranged by American women, romanticist of our dialogue of Gorbachev's time. They restore this dialogue, and they devoted to stop nuclear armament. Anyway, I do believe it's possible to find the ways. It's possible what Barbara mentioned this afternoon during our discussion in the press house. It's possible to start dialogue between different players. But dialogue between people should be involved into political dialogue. And it's up to us. We could try, and you could try in the West to explain that it's important to take into account civil society. It's important to consult with people. So I do believe in dialogue. It's the only way.
You got two good answers here, and please.
Yes, thank you. My name is Mariam Sugaipova. I'm with the Norwegian Institute of International Affairs, and this will be a question following up, Nadezhda, what you're saying right now, regarding sanctions and what you mentioned about solidarity previously. If we are discussing that, Western policymakers would sort of go into a dialogue with Russian counterparts, that would be a way to show solidarity with the Russian civil society. But I was wondering, what should, the Western civil society on the other part of the barricade and the regular people do more specifically in order to show solidarity to the Russian civil society? Are there any specific measures, mechanisms that you're missing in the cooperation between Western civil society and the Russian civil society?
Would you like to answer, Nadia? Elena?
To me, I think we do not communicate enough because of COVID, because of political competition, because of propaganda, because of lots of origins. Probably we could promote this dialogue. Just first, it's important just to talk, just to meet, and then to think what to do together. Because probably Russians look not similar to Norwegians, for example. Russians have different history and some different circumstances. But it's important to find some common basis, and it's possible.
The climate, we have snow.
Sorry, Elena. What did you say?
We have a border, border and snow, and even Barents Press as an organization.
Did I see another hand? Yes, please.
First of all, my name is Valentina. I'm from Russia. And first of all, I want to say that I'm happy to see you. I really think that you're the bravest woman that I know, and all journalists. I'm very happy for Novaya Gazeta. But my question is, I know that it's nowadays it's quite difficult to work and to live and to be happy. But I see how Elena is smiling. And my question is, where do you find resources, and who are your supporters in your life? How you can continue your work and still feel all these good things what's going on with us?
Elena, would you like to start? How do you?
Well, I'm an optimist, definitely, and I like to smile. It's not common for Russian people, I know.
It's not?
It's not. Russian people not smiling. It's just killing me.
It's a prejudice.
But I do like
smiling.
smiles. Smiles on the faces, and I like to smile myself. I just have a feeling that I'm doing the right thing, and it sounds probably very simple, but maybe young people won't understand me. But when they come to the certain age, they understand that it's probably the most important thing to in a life, just to feel that your life is the right thing, and this keeps me just doing what I do. I chose the right profession. I was born in the right country. I, no matter the circumstances, can do what I do, and I'm very happy with this.
Amazing. Yes, please.
Thank you, and congratulations again. My name is Inna Sangajeva. I'm from Norwegian Helsinki Committee. I have two questions to both of you. From one part, my question is about how to, when we have these foreign agent laws, when the Russian authorities try to dig a wall between us, how do you think we can proceed not to harm? I mean, now even, we in our organization always have to ask our partners from Russia, do we harm, And that's the question. How shall we proceed? Shall we send censorship for us as well because of these laws? That's one question. And my second question is about society. Do you see how society reacts also in terms of freedom of expression? Because there are so many now opportunities, which 30 years ago were not thinkable. And I especially think about a new survey which was done by Levada recently, that 61% of Russians would like that their freedom of expression is to be respected. That's a kind of a new thing as well, because it was not for many years. And 40% of Russians do not like this foreign agent law. So how do you see the society? Do you feel that they can support you? I mean, support journalists, or be more journalists? Do you see that, Lena and Nadezhda, do you see young journalists wanting to come, or they are scared now? Thank you.
Nadia, would you like to start?
About Russian NGOs, I think it's different, and you should just contact people and talk. And everybody has his or her or their choice. There are organizations under this label, and there are organizations without this label. It depends. It depends. Just to talk to people. And about society, unfortunately, I would like to come back to Muratov's definition that finally society should do something for journalists. It's very time to do that. Because for a long time, what we face in Russia, people didn't pay enough attention. They believed in somebody, authorities told them that journalism is some special business, people compete for money and so on, and it's their own business. That's why there was so weak reaction on violence against journalists. Now I think something is changed, something is changing, is developing. And in, young people are very, they are open-minded, they are people of universe. So they feel themselves in this global information environment. Unfortunately, they do not understand enough. Some of them have very strange perception and idea about Soviet Union, for example, and so on. So it's our business probably to educate them more.
Elena, do you agree?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. And young people still coming to Novaya Gazeta, and I think a third of 150 people that work in Novaya Gazeta is young, or maybe even more. And they.
How many people work there? How many journalists do you have?
150.
150?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a big newspaper.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm interrupted. I'm just curious. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And they do different things. TikTok, YouTube, everything. And I don't see fear in their eyes. They, like Nadia said, they different. They open to the world, and they just don't understand those times when everybody was scared to death, because, and I hope they will never experience this. So their future, and pretty good future.
Well, I'm glad you said that, since you started this meeting by saying the main thing now is to stay alive for journalists in Russia. We will allow one more question from the floor. Ingrid, did you want to ask a question? You okay? Okay, please. A short one, please. These ladies have a big program. They're meeting the whole civil society, the whole political society of Norway.
Okay, thanks again for coming, and we really like Novaya Gazeta, so I will want to say that too. But my question is then, what do you propose then, if you don't propose sanctions? How do you want to deal with this regime, which is increasing suppression of rights all the time? What are your suggestions? Just waiting for something to happen?
Well, we're not politicians, we're journalists. And like I said, when you stop talking and discussing the problems, even if you don't like the person to whom you have to discuss it with, and start with sanctions, you can end up with a war. The only way to change something is just to have this person, the president of Russia, in relationship with his colleagues, and those colleagues have to find some other ways to bring the ideas what they want to Mr. Putin. You see, it's not just the thing is not about Putin. It's about the country where he has a lot of support. And you have to understand that this country won't repeat the way of development that the European countries had. It has his own way. It's very hard to get away from the past that we had, especially the past in the last century. And we are still moving, even under Putin, on the way that go us away from this past. It's just a slow way, and nothing happens like that. And if you want something to happen, you have to talk. So I think it was a big mistake to exclude Putin from all the
Global leadership
global,
team.
yes, yeah, because you got him in his corner and he began to fight back. But he can't fight to you, to Norway, to Europe. The only targets he has, it's us. So you just make him angry and he is beating us.
I think that is a good final quote for this meeting. And tomorrow the Nobel Peace Prize will be handed out, and your message is dialogue and stay alive and be brave. And we just thank you so much
And
for
believe
on
in the
different
youngers.
levels, yes.
Sorry?
And believe in the youngers.
believe in youngers, give them a
Yes.
chance. Thank you so much for sharing. We all, as you can tell, deeply admire your courage and your very, very vital work. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.